Hi everybody, Mrs. Foot here. So, today I'm going to read you the book called Cinderella Penguin. And the person that wrote this book was Janet Perlman. And maybe you know the story of Cinderella, but this is Cinderella Penguin, or the Little Glass Flipper. You probably know Cinderella had a glass slipper. Well, Cinderella Penguin has a glass flipper. Are you ready? This is going to be a great book. So, there once was a young penguin named Cinderella who lived in a faraway land with her stepmother and two stepsisters. Cinderella was kind and gentle, but her stepsisters were selfish and vain. Cinderella did all the chores. She even had to pick up after her stepsisters, and they never had to do a thing. The sisters wore the finest of clothes, and they slept in large, cozy feather beds with silk sheets and fluffy pillows. Poor Cinderella Penguin wore nothing but worn-out tatters, and she slept in the cold stone cellar up on a little small shelf beside some old tin plates. One day, it was announced that the Penguin Prince was giving a costume ball. The stepsisters and their mother received an invitation. Oh, Cinderella wanted to go too, but they just laughed at her. The prince would never want to meet a shabby cinder block like you, they said. For weeks, the house was filled with the talk of the ball. The sisters had costumes made from the finest of fabrics. They ate only the tiniest little meals so they could have the tiniest little waists, and they were always in front of the mirror posing and practicing their curtsies. Finally, the night of the ball had arrived. Cinderella rushed about, ironing her stepsisters' costumes and helping them get dressed. Then, without even a thank you or a goodbye, the carriage swept the stepmother and the stepsisters off to the ball. Oh, sorry, guys. Ooh, they look pretty cool. There's Cinderella in the doorway. Cinderella burst into tears. She felt so unhappy and so alone. Suddenly, in the glow of a blue light, the great fairy penguin appeared before her. "Why are you crying, Cinderella? Do you want to go to the ball?" she asked. Cinderella blinked back her tears. "Oh, yes, more than anything," she said. "Then you shall go." There's the fairy. And she's still crying, but she's going to be happy. "First," said the fairy penguin, "you must fetch me a pumpkin from the garden." Cinderella didn't know how a pumpkin could help her get to the ball, but she quickly brought her the best one that she could find. The fairy gave it a firm tap with her magic wand, and I think she said bibbidi bobbidi boo, and it magically turned into a beautiful golden carriage. Then the great fairy penguin went into the kitchen, and she found 6 mice carrying a huge chunk of cheese. With a tap of her wand, bibbidi bobbidi boo, they turned into a handsome team of 6 horses. She turned the cheese, bibbidi bobbidi boo, into a fat coachman in uniform, and they all marched out the door and took their places as if they were the most natural thing to do. Now you can go to the ball. Are you happy, Cinderella?" asked the fairy. "Oh, yes," said Cinderella, but then she looked sadly down at her ragged clothes. So there's the mice and the cheese. And now they're penguin horses, ready to go out. There's the fairy penguin godmother. The great fairy penguin, I should say. "Oh," said the fairy penguin godmother, "I almost forgot." And with a tap of her wand and saying, "Bibbity bobbity boo," Cinderella's penguin's rags became a beautiful gown with gold trimmings and a real gold tiara on her head. And on her feet were a pair of glass flippers, the prettiest and most delicate that Cinderella had ever seen. They are quite lovely. "Now, one last thing," said the great fairy penguin. "The magic spell ends at the stroke of midnight. The carriage will turn back into a, you guessed it, pumpkin. The horses, again, mice. The coachman will be cheese. And you, Cinderella, will be dressed in rags. So you must leave the ball before midnight." Cinderella promised to remember, and then waving goodbye, she stepped into the carriage and rode off with joy. When Cinderella arrived at the palace, the ball was in full swing. She was welcomed with a fanfare of trumpets, and she marveled to see so many fine penguins wearing such magnificent costumes. Her stepmother and stepsisters didn't even notice her. Let's see if they're coming down the aisle. They were just too busy gobbling down snacks and party sandwiches at the buffet tables. But the penguin prince did notice Cinderella at once. "Why, who is she?" he asked his courtiers. "She is the most beautiful penguin that I have ever seen." Cinderella had never met such a handsome and charming penguin as the prince. From their very first dance together, he never left her side. They whirled and twirled around the dance floor to the applause of the admiring crowd. "Who is this beautiful young penguin who has captured the prince's attention so completely?" everyone wondered. "What a handsome couple. How well they dance together," they sighed. Oh, Cinderella had never been so happy. She wished that the night could last forever. So she's dancing, dancing, dancing. And then, look at the clock. She noticed the clock. And when she glanced at it, in all of the excitement, she completely forgot about the fairy's warning. "Oh," she cried, "it's almost midnight. I have to go." Oh, and she ran from the palace in such a hurry that one of her glass flippers fell off and was lying on the steps. As Cinderella rode away in her carriage, the prince called out, "Please, please don't go." But she was gone. He picked up the glass flipper and said sadly, "Who was she? I don't even know her name." The next day, it was announced that the prince would marry the penguin whose foot fit into the glass flipper. There was excitement throughout the land. First, all the princesses tried it on, then all the penguins of the court. But the flipper was always too small. The royal footmen were commanded to take the flipper from house to house. On the pillow there. The stepsisters spent the whole day perfuming and powdering their feet. "Cinderella," said the stepmother, Your clothes are too ragged to be seen by the royal footman. You go downstairs and polish the silver until they leave." "Oh, please, I would like to try on the flipper too," said Cinderella. She knew it would fit her perfectly. The stepsisters just laughed. But then they did look down at Cinderella's webbed feet, and for the first time they noticed how delicate they were. Can you find Cinderella's delicate feet? You didn't guess she's the one with the mop, because she has all that work to do. A knock came at the front door. "Quick, hide her," said the stepsisters. They grabbed Cinderella and they threw her down the cellar steps and they slammed the door. Poor Cinderella, she lay upside down with her foot caught tight in the door. She was unable to get free. There's her little foot. When the footman came in, the stepsisters pushed and shoved to be the first to try on the flipper. They were so intent on snatching the flipper from each other that it slipped from their grasp. It flipped high in the air and it landed squarely on Cinderella's foot. Everyone stared. There's Cinderella's foot sticking out. It fit perfectly. As the footman opened the door and helped Cinderella up, the great fairy penguin appeared. With a tap of her magic wand and those words, "Bibbidi-bobbidi-boo," she transformed Cinderella's tattered rags into the magnificent clothes she had worn to the ball. Cinderella was overjoyed. "Oh, thank you, Fairy Penguin. I thank you with all my heart." The stepmothers and stepsisters' beaks just dropped wide open. They stared at Cinderella, sputtering with amazement. "Look! Oh my! It's her! Oh no! Oh dear! We've really put our foot into it." The penguin and Cinderella Penguin were married the very next day, and the wedding bells rang throughout the land. Never before could anyone remember such a joyous and happy wedding. Cinderella and the prince truly loved each other, and they lived happily ever after. Well, I hope you like that book. That's one of my favorite penguin stories. It couldn't be real, but it sure was fun to read. I hope you really liked it. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. See you next time.